Think about the last time you went to the grocery store. The same items that cost $100 a few years ago might now cost $120 or more. Most people say the reason is simple. They say prices go up because of inflation. But inflation is not just rising prices. Inflation is the result of decisions made inside the financial system. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Inflation often helps governments more than it helps ordinary people. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why. Over the last few years, many people feel something strange. Their salaries may rise a little, but their rent rises faster. Food costs more. Fuel costs more. Saving money feels harder. Many people think inflation is just an unfortunate economic problem, something that simply happens during difficult times. But inflation is not random. It is built into how modern financial systems operate. And once you understand the system, something surprising becomes clear. Inflation can quietly solve several problems for governments. This is not an accident. It is a system. Most governments say inflation happens when the economy overheats. Too many people buying too many goods, too much demand, not enough supply. Prices rise. This explanation is partly true, but it is incomplete, because one important question remains. Where does all the extra money come from in the first place? In modern economies, money is created mainly through two systems: central banks and commercial banks. Central banks control national currencies. Commercial banks create most everyday money through lending. When governments spend more than they collect in taxes, they create deficits. A deficit simply means spending more money than you receive. To cover that gap, governments borrow money by issuing bonds. These bonds are often purchased by financial institutions and sometimes indirectly supported by central banks. This increases the total money circulating in the economy. More money chasing the same goods often leads to higher prices. That is inflation. But inflation has another effect that is rarely discussed. It slowly reduces the real value of government debt. Here is the key mechanism. Governments around the world carry enormous debt. The United States alone has over $34 trillion in government debt. Paying back such large debts is extremely difficult, but inflation quietly changes the math. Inflation reduces the purchasing power of money. Purchasing power means how much goods your money can buy. If prices rise 5%, money becomes worth slightly less. Now imagine a government that borrowed $1 trillion 10 years ago. If inflation reduces the value of money over time, that debt becomes easier to repay. Why? Because the government repays the loan using money that is worth less than when it borrowed it. The number stays the same, but the value changes. This is sometimes called inflating away the debt. The debt remains on paper, but its real burden shrinks. For governments managing large debts, this is extremely useful. Here is where things become even more interesting. Inflation does not affect everyone equally. People who receive new money first often benefit. Economists call this the Cantillon Effect. It means new money enters the economy through certain channels first, usually through banks, financial markets, and government spending. Those closest to the new money can spend it before prices fully rise. Meanwhile, ordinary workers receive wage increases much later. By the time wages increase, prices may already be higher. This creates a hidden transfer of purchasing power. Money moves quietly from savers and wage earners toward borrowers and asset owners. Governments are among the largest borrowers in the economy, so inflation reduces their debt burden while transferring costs elsewhere. This transfer is rarely obvious. It happens gradually, but over time, the effects become powerful. Here is the number that changes everything. Since 2008, central banks around the world created over $30 trillion in new liquidity. Liquidity simply means money available inside financial markets. This massive increase supported governments, banks, and financial institutions, but it also increased the total money supply. And when money supply rises faster than goods and services, inflation follows. That inflation spreads across the entire economy, but the benefits and costs are not evenly distributed. Now let's step back. Does this mean governments deliberately cause inflation? Not necessarily, but the system creates strong incentives. Inflation helps governments manage large debts. It can stimulate economic activity, and it can prevent financial crises during difficult times. From a policy perspective, moderate inflation is often considered acceptable. In fact, many central banks target about 2% inflation per year. Why? Because small inflation encourages spending and investment. If money loses a little value each year, people are less likely to hoard cash. They invest it instead. But over long periods, even small inflation compounds. Prices slowly climb, savings lose value, and governments find it easier to manage large debts. Inflation, therefore, acts like a quiet financial pressure valve. It reduces debt burdens while keeping the system moving. The important insight is this: inflation is not simply rising prices. It is a structural feature of modern financial systems. It redistributes purchasing power. It influences borrowing and spending, and it quietly reduces the real value of government debt. This does not mean the system is broken. It means the system operates according to incentives. Once you understand those incentives, many economic mysteries start making sense. The system becomes easier to see, and understanding the system is the first step toward navigating it.